Hey everyone, hello YouTube family, ni hao. Welcome back to another episode of Lannan Lives in China. Today we are talking about Transsion Holdings, the creators and manufacturers of Tecno phones. Transsion is a unique company because they are a Chinese mobile company that has never sold a phone in China. Instead, they focus all of their resources and their time on the Africa market. They have gone so far as to develop a strategy that is tailored to fit the African market, in fact. To learn more about Transsion, why their company's slogan is Think Global and Act Local, and some of my thoughts on the expansion of Chinese companies into countries in Africa, stay tuned for the rest of this video. Transsion Holdings, or in Chinese, Transsion Holdings, is a mobile phone manufacturer that's based in China. Their headquarters are in Shenzhen, but they also have offices in Beijing, Shanghai, and Huizhou. Huizhou is actually an interesting place to have an office. Huizhou is in Guangdong province on the Pearl River Delta, and I thought it was unique that they had an office there, so I did some research as to why, and I pulled up some really interesting things. I think that this topic deserves another video, so I'll do another video at a later date about Huizhou and why tech companies are locating themselves there. But for now, just know that it is kind of unique for them to have an office there. Transsion Holdings was founded in 2006 by tech entrepreneur and businessman George Zhujiang. Before starting Transsion Holdings, George Zhujiang had traveled to over 90 countries, and this kind of gave him the global mindset that fuels Transsion to this day. When Transsion Holdings began, the company initially focused on the Southeast Asia market, and they headquartered themselves in Hong Kong with a research and development center in Shanghai, China. During Transsion's first 2 years in the Southeast Asia market, Transsion focused on trying to understand Southeast Asia. While working there, they also decided to look at other developing markets because they kind of started to notice that even though Southeast Asia could be lucrative if a company were to establish themselves there early on, there was a lot of competition. The competition was quite fierce, especially because of Southeast Asia's close proximity to other countries that already had mobile phone kings. So they conducted a bunch of research to figure out what other country could be lucrative for them, and they concluded that Africa would actually be the most lucrative for the future. So in 2008, they began to focus exclusively on the African market, saying that they wanted to be the mobile kings of Africa. Since making that decision in 2008, Transsion has gotten a lot of positive press and earned a lot of support from local people in countries in Africa. They've actually accomplished a lot in a short period of time, and to name a few of their accomplishments, in 2016 they were ranked among African Business Magazine's top 100 admired brands. In 2017 to 2018, Brand 100 Africa report named them the 7th most admired brand in Africa, growing in the ranks from 14th in the previous year. Samsung and Apple were actually 2nd and 5th, and they've reached a global market share of around 28%. Then last, they currently comprise about 40% of the mobile industry in Africa. I think of Transsion as something comparable to Metro PCS in the United States. You know, back when I was in high school, Metro was the phone to own if you could not afford Sprint, AT&T, or T-Mobile. And Metro's big thing was that they offered these $50 or less phone plans that allowed you to enter a phone, to have a cell phone without entering this crazy phone contract like the other phone companies had. And they also offered a wide range of phones for you to buy, phones ranging from prices from $50 all the way to like hundreds of dollars. People made fun of Metro PCS because it was, you know, a phone company that did not allow you to have an iPhone. They kind of had crappy phones, but people started to respect Metro PCS as time went on, because especially when the economy started to turn, people couldn't afford these ridiculous phone contracts. So people started to regard Metro as being a practical option, and they started to put some respect on Metro PCS's name. So similar to the way that Metro PCS has managed to gain respect, Transsion has become a gem to local communities in Africa. To be more specific about how they've done this, here are 6 ways that Transsion became mobile tycoons on the continent. Number 1, Transsion offers competitive pricing. The price of Transsion phones range according to the brand that you're buying under. There are 3 different brands under the Transsion umbrella: Infinix, Itel, and Tecno. Transsion segments their phones with regard to price point and demographic. So for example, Itel phones are known to have lower resolution because they are targeted to younger and entry cell phone users. The price of Itel phones starts at around 15,000 Naira, which is $42. Despite their cheap costs, Itel phones are said to perform functions of smartphones that cost around 30,000 Naira, which is $83. Infinix phones, on the other hand, start at 17,000 Naira, which is $47, and go up to 70,000 Naira, which is $194. And the last and most famous Tecno phones range from 30,000 Naira, which is $83, to 80,000 Naira, which is $222. So you see, Transsion offers a number of different phones at a variety of price points, which allows buyers to pick the price and function match that suits them best. Number 2, Transsion has tailored their phone mechanics to meet the needs of local people. Their most famous local innovation is the dual SIM card slot. This was added because their R&D team noticed that people would walk around with two phone cards in their pockets, fumbling when switching between phone cards. Apparently, people do this because some networks charge more after using a certain amount of data per day. In fact, Nigeria has a multi-pack SIM card usage rate of around 60 cents per SIM. Seeing this gave them the idea to manufacture phones with two SIM card slots, allowing phone users to seamlessly switch between networks. In addition to their innovative SIM card solution, another local innovation that they promoted is developing a camera for phones that sheds about 30% more light on darker faces. This is so cool, and I've been waiting for a phone brand to do this because I've noticed, particularly with Samsung phones, that if you have darker skin like me, you get really bad resolution on your face. Another local innovation that they've created is phones with some of the longest battery life among phones offered on the continent. And this is great because in some countries in Africa, there are planned power outages, and some people live in villages, so they are forced to go into the city to charge their phones, and they have to pay when charging their phones. Number 3, adding apps and features that incorporate local languages. Transsion is also famous for manufacturing cell phone interfaces in local languages and growing languages such as Swahili, which is rare for non-domestically produced cell phones. I've often wondered this about cell phone companies that sell their phones in different countries. I think that if you really care about the country that you're selling your phones to, or you really want people to buy your phones, you should try to incorporate local languages. But a lot of even the largest phone brands have not figured out how to do this. In addition to their focus on local languages, they have also invested in local music. Transsion noticed that cell phone users on the continent were not used to paying for music on platforms like Apple Music, but they preferred to stream music for free on sites like YouTube. So they created a preloaded music streaming app, Boomplay, with the help of a Nigerian rapper and businessman. And this app not only allows listeners to stream global hits, but it also focuses on local music and Afro beats that are so increasingly famous worldwide. Number 4, setting up after-sale service centers. Transsion features after-sale service centers for people who buy Transsion phones under warranty through a service called CalCare. CalCare functions kind of like a Mac bar. If you own a Transsion phone that has a problem while it's under warranty, all you have to do is bring it into the CalCare center for repair. This is ingenious because a lot of people that are buying Transsion phones are buying cell phones for the first time, especially if they're buying some of their lower-end brands. And so it's great that they have a place for people to go in and ask questions and also get their phone repaired. This was one of Mac's innovations that a lot of companies are starting to catch on to in order to make people more comfortable with buying their phones. Number 5, appealing to local influencers. Transsion has also enlisted the help of local influencers to promote their brand. Last year, they even flew a number of influencers from the continent to their R&D center in Shanghai to show them how they are improving their brand and what they're doing in Africa. And here's a photo of some of the people that managed to go. I actually saw a video on this YouTuber's channel about her trip there, and I thought it was quite cool. So shout out to her. Number 6, employing workers locally. This is something that's really, really important. Transsion has done a lot to employ people locally. In 2011, Transsion set up a mobile manufacturer factory in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Phone parts are not produced there, but they are assembled there. So right now, Transsion claims to have over 10,000 employees employed on the continent. This is a transition from many Chinese companies that enter Africa and don't always make use of the workforce there. You'll see a lot of companies that say, okay, we have headquarters in Africa, but what they usually do is get talent from abroad or only employ people that are from North Africa or South Africa. These companies don't really focus on employing people in East and West Africa. I respect the fact that Transsion has decided that if they want to become a pillar of the mobile phone industry in Africa, they have to employ local people to do this. So good on them for doing that. So what is the future of Transsion Holdings in Africa? We see that they are obviously doing well now, but the truth is that they will face competition from larger phone brands that are interested in integrating themselves into the continent. Huawei has actually expressed some interest in entering, and Oppo brand, which is pretty famous in China, has also made some efforts. Transsion itself regards that the competition is fierce, and they said in a 2013 interview, "This is the fastest moving industry. A day in the mobile industry is like a week or month in other industries. We have to constantly launch new products and improve quality and service. The competition here is fierce. The counterfeit phones are also a challenge." But Transsion does have a few tricks up its sleeve. Transsion applied to an IPO on the Shanghai Stock Exchange in an effort to secure more funding to fuel its growth. In late March, they completed their advisory phase and are currently being advised by a CITIC, so there is hope for them. If they can succeed and secure the proper amount of funding, they may actually be able to continue growing and providing the best phones for the continent. All of these things represent Transient's act local, go global strategy. Although they are a company from China, they have taken time to understand the local market and adapt to local customs. They've also employed global strategies to a local economy, and this has helped them realize a large amount of success in a place that others have not been able to succeed in. People act like succeeding in the African market is tough because there are all these constraints with concern to the workforce or human capital, and I just think that that's a complete lie. I think that a lot of companies that don't succeed in Africa don't succeed because they are not humble and they don't humble themselves enough to actually understand people that live there and understand the needs of people. Transsion has humbled themselves and they've seen success. So people who are interested in going into markets in Africa, take a note from Transsion, be humble, in the words of Kendrick Lamar. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think about Transsion in the comments. Let me know if you think that the work they are doing on the continent is good or if you think it's bad. And also, if you watched this video, please click the like button and also follow me because I do things like this every week. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time on Lan Lan Lives in China. Bye.